Great, thank you. So I guess the first probably 10 or so minutes, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Women in BIM. If you don't know much about our incentive, or in fact know much about me and the rest of the panelists, we're hoping that this will provide some insight into what we've been doing as a group, why this group is obviously very important, and how it impacts, I guess, the global construction sector. So again, thank you to the organisers and welcome to our session. So who are Women in BIM? As a global initiative, Women in BIM were founded in 2012 by myself as the chair, as a response to the lack of women in BIM related or digital construction roles. Women in BIM's objectives and core drivers were established back then, and they were to ensure that there were streams that we could work on to support particular projects to influence the future of the construction industry. And those streams included, firstly, to encourage and support young people, young women specifically, in entering careers in BIM or digital areas. Secondly, to attract and promote young women or women in general in entering these careers, and showcasing role models effectively to support how we can engage young women in industry. And thirdly, one of the, and again, they're all very important, but certainly to advance and retain. We're seeing too high a number of women leaving the industry, too high a number of women leaving the industry in general and not re-entering. So therefore, the number of women in BIM globally is very low. As a response to the development of the team, and as very much over the last 4 or 5 years, we've very much seen, I guess, our core team and our initiative move, I guess, between different people that have been involved. So effectively, Women in BIM is a not-for-profit, established in the UK, as I said, in 2012, as I was based in London for about 10 years, and this is where we saw a very strong uptake for BIM, specifically in response to the UK BIM framework. Our core team consists of only 5 people, and we are looking to grow the core team heavily in the next few months. Certainly myself as the chair, we have Vicky Reynolds as the global vice chair based out of the UK, Dr. Jenny Barrett, who supports our education stream also in the UK, Gergana Stakova, who is our database lead, looking at developing initiatives around growing members in regions that are underrepresented, and Nicole Cicco, who does all of the global administration and manages our engagement effectively across industry. We also have secured only this year, which is really exciting, sponsors in 2 specific regions. Firstly, APAC or Asia Pacific. We have sponsors, and obviously in the UK or Europe, we also have sponsors. Our 2 global sponsors are Oricon and i3PT, Oricon Group in Australasia, i3PT in the UK. We also have Glider BIM as our main sponsor out of the UK, as well as GHD and Mott MacDonald, who also act as sponsors in the Australasian region, which has been a really exciting progression as part of the growth and support for our group. Now, constantly across many different areas of our discussions, across many areas of the world, we're often confronted with the question, why is this important? So as a response to not only the visibility, I guess, of women in the construction sector, but certainly as a response to the growth of women in BIM out of the UK, what we found was all of the data that was, I guess, implemented or issued across industry, specifically in the UK, was very much suggesting the critical skills shortages that is currently extended to a global skills crisis in BIM and digital engineering, and therefore we need more women and women of ethnic minorities that need to be, I guess, involved in BIM. Also, as a response to more recently the gender pay gap report issued by the World Economic Forum in 2021, there is still an issue with women being paid less and obviously not promoted as much as men across our industry. And therefore, we are trying to promote diversity across the industry as a whole to support greater innovation, creativity, and profitability, and also address those skills shortages. Women in BIM is a global affiliation. We have members all over the world, as you can see here. We have members within our database, which is very much our member portal across our website, as well as across our social media channels. We host webinars and podcasts. Most of the webinars we've hosted are now embedded within our YouTube channel, again, to support knowledge sharing across industry. One of the most important, or one of the important initiatives for women in BIM is the creation of regional leads. Regional leads are effectively people, men or women, that exist across the world to effectively support our core streams, our core work streams. And currently, we have 40 leads across 20 countries, and that is continually growing. Last year was probably our first formalized year where we used a lot of the data that we embedded across our work to release an annual report this year, which discussed many of the projects that we work on. One of the largest projects, certainly that is being received very well across industry, is our mentor scheme, founded and developed by our previously known mentor lead, Katya Velova, and now in its second year. We have launched our Women in Mentor scheme as a second year. We have obviously the mentor process in place where we host events and unmatched events for unmatched applicants, and also we gather data on the process. But certainly what we've seen now is that the process of developing our projects, certainly with mentoring as well as podcasts and regional leads that are obviously represented in areas of the world required, is certainly allowing us to grow heavily. Our webinars that we host across the world, also very important for that thought leadership piece. We host our UK specific webinars throughout the year. Some of them are listed here. And we also have our regional leads hosting webinars, which we'll talk about today as part of this panel session. We certainly have been pushing a Careers in BIM series in Australia with our regional leads that are on the session today, as well as a Spanish series and other events that are coming soon. Our global podcasts not only relate back to Women in BIM in the UK, but again, across Australia, the US and other regions of the world like New Zealand, but certainly we are pushing the release of podcasts to then obviously act to support our members in terms of specific topics in BIM to relate back to obviously career progression as well as education in BIM and digital construction methods. We have quarterly regional lead meetings, and again, this is a really important initiative because our regional leads aim to support the growth of the group and support diversity in their regions. And they also have been looking at a variety of different projects. We know that within the UK specifically, there is much work being undertaken to support the growth of women in careers in BIM and encouraging young women through our work with something called Class of Your Own, where we work with initiatives within junior and senior secondary schooling to promote careers in BIM to young women, as well as other projects that we work on with institutions for developing, I guess, support in reporting, report writing and documentation for BIM in the UK. In Australia, which is something we're going to speak about very soon, is what we've been doing in BIM with our Careers in BIM session, how that will subsequently become mini projects for our team to support, obviously, careers in BIM and career progression, as well as analysis of the skills and resources needed to support the future of our industry. And finally, again, an example is the initiatives across the US, where we are looking at potential partnerships with different groups, but certainly one of the research projects that we are looking at is to align to the Global Economic Forum data relating to gender pay gaps effectively and specific BIM roles and why that's still happening. So with our mentor scheme, just finally, and we'll move to the panel session very soon, we have now finalised our second round of mentor scheme matches. We announced those matches only last month, rather, in May. And in July, we're hoping to allocate people that were not matched into unmatched applicant activities or UMA activities. And those UMA activities effectively were rolled out last year because the number of people that are now obviously submitting their applications for the mentor scheme is growing. And we're finding that we can't match everybody based on the number of or the lower number of mentor applications we're receiving. And therefore, it is very important that we support these young or any women that are applying for the mentor scheme, because the unmatched applicant activities very much are also about knowledge share. So looking at, BIM basics and some of the kind of applications of BIM on a global level. We have career coaching workshops using, again, some of our unmatched mentors to support those. We have events that relate to BIM resources, as well as, the technologies that support our BIM projects, as well as BIM processes and standards. And finally, the cultural aspect of the implementation of BIM and some of those activities relating to change management. And obviously, we've partnered with many events across the world, and we continue to partner with events to grow the number of women attending, and also encourage our members to attend the thought leadership events within our obviously within our stream. So with that, I will, I'm not sure if I need to stop sharing my screen, but we will begin our panel discussion now. And I guess the first stage of the panel discussion really for Women in BIM is, I guess, an introduction from me. I haven't probably given you enough about what I do effectively, but my name is Rebecca Cicco. I'm the Global Chair of Women in BIM, and I am the Principal for Digital Operations within the Oricon Group, previously Digital Node. And my aim is to act as the global chair, to act as a role model, and to support all of our kind of global initiatives for women in BIM. So with that, I'll move to, I guess I'll go across the image here. Jenny, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Rebecca, and hello, everyone that's dialing in today. My name is Jenny Tseng, and I'm the New South Wales Regional Lead for Women in BIM, and currently the Principal Digital Advisor for Mott MacDonald, with a core focus on driving asset data integration and digital twin. A little bit about Mott MacDonald as a global engineering, management, and development consultancy. We do have a digital advisory sector that is driving digital transformations by combining domain expertise across to deliver social, economic, and environmental values, and connecting innovations to outcomes. As such, I'm very excited with the Women in BIM opportunities and community to build that industry level support network, empowering more women, enable more diversity into these new innovations and new space. Thank you. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Jenny. And we're excited, obviously, to have you as a regional lead in New South Wales. So we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. Okay, our next regional lead to introduce themselves is Belinda Thompson. Hi, Belinda.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Jenny. So I'm Belinda Thompson. I'm the West Australian regional lead for Women in BIM. Currently, I am the BIM lead for Western Australia at GHD. Background is in architecture, moved away from that about 5 years ago to follow the infrastructure boom. First foray, I guess, into rail projects was as BIM manager on the Forestfield Airport link, and haven't looked back. The way that the industry is going these days is just, it's exciting.
Totally agree. And I think there's, one of the discussion points we often have is, about the, the way that the industry's changing, and how our roles constantly change. Certainly something we'll talk about today. Thanks, Belinda. Rachel Strauss is our regional lead out of Victoria. So Rachel, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Rachel and I'm the Women in BIM Victorian Regional Lead, and I'm the BIM Manager and co-founder of a BIM consultancy called BIMco. And the majority of the work that we conduct is with designers, engineers and architects to provide a suite of services to achieve BIM deliverables for a project. And majority of my role is comprised of writing up documentation standards, recommending workflows, creating, maintaining BIM object libraries, and providing ongoing training and support. And I guess Women in BIM is important to me as it's an initiative that supports diversity and equality within the profession that aligns with my values. And I did show interest in being involved in Women in BIM because just from my experience as being a graduate, mentoring programs and networking events such as the ones that Rebecca did touch on earlier today in the presentation, they did broaden my understanding of the knowledge in the industry and just meeting new people as well. But in saying this, I believe my story can relate to others who are watching today and wanting to, seek out the same knowledge and share experiences.
Yeah, great. And I think again, it's really important to be able to share, share our experiences, certainly with the young people that are entering careers in this space. So thanks, Rachel. And we have our final panelist is Ligia, and you pronounce your surname better than I do, Ligia. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Ligia Trindade and I am the regional lead for Brisbane at Women in BIM and also digital coordinator at Willow. I am currently working at the Cross River Rail project in Brisbane, and as most of us, my background is in architecture, but I've been working quite heavily within BIM space for over 10 years now, especially within the heavy infrastructure industry in Brazil and South America, and since 2019 in Australia as well. I joined Women in BIM last year, and it's really important. I think it's a really important initiative, especially for young women entering in the industry, and we know that because of this lack of women and representative in that space, it's really important for us to share knowledge, ideas with and to build a great network with other women as well around the
Totally,
world.
Totally. I was going to say, one of the, we don't really talk about the early journey with Women in BIM, but effectively it was just, running a couple of networking events, right? Just bringing people together when we could all meet face to face, which is so important, I think. So as part of our panel discussion, we've obviously crafted a few questions to support not only, I guess, the initiative around, why Women in BIM is important, but for those listening to understand, I guess, some of our key drivers across the group. So, one of the first discussion points that we'd like to touch on is, what is the relevance of women in BIM in industry? And one of the things I touched on earlier was skills shortages, but certainly there are other things that are impacting why we need more women in BIM or digital engineering roles or digital construction roles, whatever you want to term, the process or the area. Certainly for me, it is about ensuring that there's visibility for women and, having, representation of women in industry drives innovation, like I said earlier. But Belinda, what are your thoughts in what makes Women in BIM an important initiative today?
Have to unmute. I think that we've all touched on it in some way in the introduction and what you've said, Rebecca. One of the key drivers for this is that it's a very male-dominated industry: construction, engineering, not so much architecture, but definitely construction and engineering. So there isn't necessarily those same support networks, and I think women in general can lack confidence in their abilities. So having a group like Women in BIM able to help guide and navigate what is a very male-dominated industry is really important. I suppose I hope that we can assist those trying to plan out a career in BIM and hopefully open doors for them and be able to offer more opportunities for them to embrace, breaking down those barriers between what is a fairly siloed male-dominated area within the industry. I think that for many of us on this call, we were early adopters. We probably forged our careers without there being a place for us. And that's both women and men who have adopted BIM early and adopted digital engineering. Where we have been able to create those positions within the organisations that we're working in at the moment, I think it gives us great leadership examples for people to follow as far as what we can offer for knowledge and support and clear direction for those that are interested in heading down that path.
Certainly, one of the, I guess, with the mentor scheme that was that is currently being rolled out, I think one of the key messages, I guess, within all of the kind of conversations we had with people that applied was, the confidence to be able to say, this is what I want, this is what I need in my role or my career, etc. And you know, whether we like it or not, the majority of the data and the research suggests that women aren't as confident in communicating that as men, and you know, it's just the nature of the beast, I think, and that's why, for me anyway, and I'd be, you know, if anybody wants to comment, I'm happy to take, you know, to push this conversation a bit. But personally, I've really driven within most of the projects we've worked on intelligent forms of gathering data on individuals' skills and resources within businesses, because women will generally you know, pop themselves on in a lower kind of category than men. You know, men would generally you know, pop in, you know, higher scores for different things within their skill set, you know, generally pump themselves up more than young women would. So certainly that's something that I'm looking at, you know, within Women in BIM more closely, you know, to help with that confidence.
One of the things that I heard earlier this week in a meeting was that if there were 10 criteria for a role, a woman would look at it, and if she hit 8 of those criteria, she'd probably not apply for the role, whereas a man would hit 4 and go, oh, I'm perfect for it, and apply for it.
Yeah.
So it's just breaking down those barriers that we have or inbuilt in our mind, that kind of unconscious bias, I guess.
Definitely, and that's a lot of the again, the research suggests that if we start to look at unconscious bias and, you know, areas of I don't know, like data that suggests we need to change or try and address those challenges. I think one of the, like I said, the mentor scheme, one of the key drivers for me in the mentor scheme is making sure that I help, you know, my mentee in addressing, you know, those areas. But I mean, when it comes to, you know, the growth of skills and education, you know, we are constantly, as you know, we've spoken about in the past, upskilling ourselves, trying to, you know, be the best at what we do, etc. But I mean, Jenny, I mean, what are your thoughts on how, as a group, we can, you know, we can promote young women that might not have the right skills to enter careers in BIM and digital engineering? You know, because again, we need more women to be entering the industry to be able to balance out those issues with gender diversity.
Yeah, it's a great question, Rebecca, and I think you know, both you and Belinda and others has touched base on. I think for me, over the years, we have evolved, obviously, beyond just doing the modeling and the technical side into, you know, potentially a new sectors. It's still very underrepresented. Therefore, you know, Women in BIM is a great and rare community that we can actually, by increasing the presence, to also further forge alliances, maybe new alliances, to increase the growth area in our resourcing. I guess two particular area is, you know, if the university and academia side is actually help increasing the skill set from a technical perspective, we can maybe help by mentoring also with the strategic partner that we can form with organization at industry level to teach them, support the skill set, the soft skill set on that side, but also highlighting the sponsors that can actually seek within the organization. And I think another thing to highlight is that being a new sector means there's a lot of unknown and there could be insecurity. So potentially organizations that we actually can help, if not have a conversation with, to actually grow that and uplift what their learning and development pathway will be, maybe potentially a framework that can support the growth and the sustainability of what digital looks like in a couple of years' time. So it's not just a short interim kind of role, which if the project finishes, that we see the end of what that is. There's actually that long tenure period that we can see how it evolves into other stuff and support other side of the business management or functions. So I think many things that we can promote, but baby step is to make sure we have that alignment, thinking across the industry as well as organizations supporting the growth of this new capability and the new talents, and making sure we can actually support the retention of those people with enough growth and pathways ahead.
And I think one of the things we were looking at, again, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, was the new, I guess, the new capabilities and the new skills required. Like Belinda, you even mentioned that, if we don't have enough of those skills, we're not going to apply for those roles. But I think it's an organisation's duty to ensure that, it's young people are given access to the right learning, and that means, ensuring that, these young people are exposed to that learning within their organization. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that, just having a diversity policy within your business just isn't enough,
And I guess,
drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mentorship that we are offering is probably at industry level to actually highlight some of what the role models we have, being, us or could be early adopters. We can actually incentivize that. But we think each organization, they should have that mentorship within as well to, give and provide direction and governance and guide that knowledge through the, their pathways in succession. So it's quite important that we actually collectively do that, being either in apprenticeship or something like that, or job learning or projects. It's all collectively, what we need to work together going forward.
Yeah, and one of the issues is, the fact that because we're constantly trying to be better and to grow those skills, is that we're constantly working so hard. So we, and people in general, men and women, to try and upskill when you're in, when you're in the workforce is really difficult. And again, that's an organizational wide policy really that needs to be put in place to support, the way that regardless of where you sit within a business, you need to continually be, taking these digital processes and technologies very seriously, so you can effectively sell your services as a business. But I mean, I guess on a kind of slightly different tangent, I mean, one of the things as a group that we're interested really, and we've spoken about at length, is that capability within industry, because there are regions of the world, as we know, that are more mature than others. Obviously, there are regions of the world that have more support when it comes to BIM and digital construction and process. But I mean, really what we're trying to do is establish, what are the key criteria for these skills when working in BIM? I mean, Rachel, as a business owner, certainly, with your projects, I mean, you would certainly find it difficult to resource some of those projects based on the lack of skills out there. I mean, but what do you think when it comes to future skills? What are the sort of skills we'll be needing, I guess, in our industry when it comes to BIM?
Yeah, good question, Rebecca. And obviously my answer will kind of differ from any other person that you ask. But probably the main thing that I believe is just showing a passion for technology, because I guess that's the core of what our industry is, like digital technology. And I guess the next question, like I guess for the audience, I guess, what industry are you in, or what projects do you work in, or what are you looking to work? Like, do you work for a facilities management or company, or do you work for a builder, or are you an academic that's researching better ways of delivering BIM deliverables? And so I guess as a whole broad thing, it's good to be across all the software across the board, but I find that whatever department you're working in will kind of you'll be more influenced and focused on certain different programs. So say, I guess if you're a surveyor, you'll probably be more involved in the GIS knowledge. And I guess with me, like I work a lot with architects, so I'm kind of a lot more familiar with the Revit platform and Navisworks and all of that. But generally a good understanding of computer applications and systems. And because I guess another question is like, because technology is constantly advancing and new things are being introduced all the time, you have to be, as a person, open and flexible to change as well. So I guess if you ask me the same question in another 5 years' time, my answer will probably be quite different. And like, in 5 years' time, like there'll be more tried and tested methods for successful life cycle of digital models in action and all of that. So, and currently right now, I don't think there's too many examples in Australia that exist that shows this successful life cycle. And I reckon, having more industry knowledge, more regulations and all that, and even like, government might come into play by introducing government policies. You'd have a bit more development from that, from working examples. But I guess as a business owner and also putting my employer hat on, when I look into hiring staff, I feel one of the most important things is, or generally the most important thing is having great interpersonal skills, are enthusiastic and easy to get along with, and particularly because our role requires a lot of cross coordination and communication with different sectors. And don't get me wrong, like qualifications and experience in operating digital programs are very favorable, but you know, these can always be taught when you're in the job as well. So
totally.
yeah,
and that's so important. I think that's one of the things that we often well, I often look for, when I'm bringing in, people to help support our projects, even, both internally and externally. For many years, like you, I ran my own business, and I just wanted to work with the right people that, potentially had, yes, very good skills in technology, but could work with our clients and communicate with our clients effectively. And that really was a key kind of criteria for me. I mean, certainly when it comes to skills, one of the things that we need to start to, I guess, address, particularly in Australia, is the title or the role versus the responsibilities and the criteria for responsibilities. And that's something that we probably need to look at in a bit more detail, because the role of BIM manager or digital engineering manager might vary between a business. Different businesses would have a different definition of what that looks like. Does anyone have any comments on that? A bit of an ad hoc question, but
Sorry, you can. So I was thinking about the women in leadership in BIM.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came to my mind is that there is a lack of women in leadership, not only in our industry, but it's across almost all industry in Australian workforce, and I will say worldwide. And I think that it's not only my perception, but according to the latest report from Australia's Workplace Gender Equality Agency, only 14% of board chairs are women. So that's a huge gap. And I think that one of the findings of this research, as a lesson learned from Australian companies leading the way to gender equality, is that what is necessary to change it is not only organizational strategies to support gender equality. They are really important, but it's more than just policies and hiring practice. So companies need, I think that they need a clear plan to develop and keep these talents. And women need an environment where I think that they feel valued, heard, and also able to make an impact while progressing their careers. Flexible work, ensuring that the infrastructure is in place to support this more inclusive and flexible workplace, and also setting targets to engage it across all levels and genders as well. And I think that also invest in frontline leaders' capabilities to drive cultural change is important. If we understand that it's not a women issue, but also men can also help to drive the change.
Yeah.
And to finish, I think that develop rising women and ensure experience in key roles. I mean, in other words, ensure female leaders have the experiences and the resources to learn what they need most. And that's why I believe that initiatives such as our mentor scheme are so important.
Yeah, I was going to say something that you've touched on there is the lack of, so with the mentor scheme, we have, half the number of mentors apply than mentees, which indicates by default the lack of support required by women in BIM members globally. And the fact that the women in BIM mentees that are applying are generally asking for female mentors is a strong indication that we need more, obviously, female role models. And the way that we achieve that would be again, looking at a strategy as to highlight those role models globally, so that young people have visibility, if it's connecting with them on LinkedIn or having maybe more podcasts that support women in leadership. Very, very important. Certainly for me, I would prefer, obviously, speaking to someone, a woman in leadership, with maybe more experience than me, than a man, so I could relate to their experiences and gain some knowledge on what they've been doing. But yeah, that's really good insight as well, Ligia. And I think most of us are finding, that's the case. I guess organisational-wide policies are so important to support women in leadership and those career pathways to the top. So I guess, what is next really now for women in BIM, and what are we doing in Australia? We spoke about earlier about the fact that we are hosting our Women in BIM webinar series, which very much touches on the specifics around roles and responsibilities, etc. But I think we've had some connection as well with the Australian BIM Academic Forum to support the development of curriculum in Australia, which relates to BIM-related skills and knowledge, and what careers in a variety of different fields across the built environment sector would need to include when it comes to BIM, etc. So maybe, I mean, Belinda, what do you think about this when it comes to the work that we can do in our discussions and webinars that we're hosting throughout the year regarding career pathways? I mean, what are your thoughts on our next steps in that space?
Look, I think we're making pretty good progress with the webinars that we hold outside of these panels. I think that is awesome. We've got a lot of those scheduled for the coming months, which is great. The podcasts are also fantastic and much more informal, which is nice. It gives some people some insight into, I think, our personalities rather than what we might come across on the panels, which, to be honest, I dislike public speaking, so I'm uncomfortable at best, but turn the camera off and you probably couldn't shut me up. So I think that the more people that we can get involved, the better. If anyone's listening in and they haven't headed to the Women in BIM website and registered to become a member, take the time to do it. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff coming up, which I'm sure that you'll touch on, Rebecca.
And I think, look, when it comes to the careers in BIM sessions, they're good to talk. It's good to talk about careers in BIM and stuff, but what Women in BIM are aiming to do is to kind of have tangible outcomes and potentially developing support, I guess, for organisations and industry to understand what these future skills look like, and what are the requirements from industry when it comes to the capability and the maturity and skill set. So what are the criteria for skills, like we mentioned earlier? Jenny, I know you've got some thoughts on, potential projects that we're going to look at as well to measure this, and potential work streams for women in BIM. Can you touch on some of those now, I guess, broadly?
Yeah, pretty much. I think what we currently have, and it's not just us in the same thinking space, is there are federal fundings currently looking at upskilling, the digital side of the capabilities. But obviously, currently we need to be able to better collect data to actually form what the baseline is, and to understand where we are currently at landscape, in a digital landscape, to actually build out what their fundamental skill sets are. So I think, as a community, Women in BIM, we also have been consulted by, say, ABWO, which is Australian, the BIM forum, to look at what that the overarching capability framework could be potentially. But I think internally it would be great to actually have and set up some measuring benchmark data, if not maturity assessment, on what we care for from a technical perspective, to allow someone that is either new or hoping to pivot their career path to enter into these new sectors, or vice versa. How do we then measure the progression of their skill set as they go through the different career path up the ladder, if not crossover to linear to a different kind of projects? Because currently the way that we see the career path is also not the same way that how we envisage traditionally, which is vertical. It's actually linear across different project types or project modes, if not different sectors. And so we are actually trying to modernize that capability, framework, and maturity, but having a fundamental benchmark and foundation of what we perceive are the critical core skills and what's nice to have on top of that. So it's kind of like a stacking up kind of a maturity steps as we go through. And consider yourself as a change agent coming to the space. And I think also for us to help them, assure them with a bit of that trust, and also take away some of the insecurity for the people along that journey as well. I think they're all critical for us to ensure that skills is then being retained, as well as have a body of knowledge that we can then start to co-share. And as we get more women in leadership kind of a role, we can still build up that next level of the generations going further up the ladder.
Sure. And I think, looking at the development within our current, so we have obviously our member portal, where we're potentially going to look at an opportunity to develop something, along the lines of hosting, having people tagged for that are potentially looking for opportunities, or tagged for different skills. Where it's certainly something that we're looking at, because it addresses those strategic kind of wider issues across industry on a global level, not just here in Australia. And if we haven't the ability to be able to tag people, and then obviously search for people within our database with the specific skills and understanding and knowledge, then we can effectively not only position them for roles, potentially future roles, but also for events, because again, one of the main reasons Women in BIM came about to begin with was the lack of female representation on panels, right? So which is still a big problem in our sector. But I guess we've got a few more minutes before we jump to questions. One of the last things, maybe Rachel, you can touch on, is how we support young women, with their possible roles. I mean, we've had, like I said, there's so many opportunities out there in BIM, and there are skills that are needed, and what are the available roles. I mean, obviously we're doing a little bit with the website, but I mean, as role models, effectively, which is what we all are, how do we promote these sorts of roles, within industry? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess promoting our roles, as a general, just general conversations I have with people outside of the industry, I have to explain what BIM is a lot of the time. And I think a lot of it comes down to people not knowing too much of what BIM is, and trying to work out ways of what to explain what it is, and I guess, because it's a relatively new industry as well. I guess, as a community, we can all support people who do have those questions about the industry, and because it's fairly new, there's always new standards coming in, or just new developments all the time that you have to just keep on watch with the news, essentially. And the funny thing is that I guess one of the employees that we have at our office, she kind of approached us just out of interest, looking to learn more about, the BIM industry. What do you do? And we came back to her and just said, look, we kind of explained what we do and what BIM is and all of that. And because we work with a lot of architects, she came from an architecture background and stuff. So we had the option of, if she wanted to, explore the architecture industry, she could, but she did make the right call at the end of the day, and started to work with us in BIM. So I think another factor is putting yourself out there, make yourself known. We're looking to meet more people in the industry, and yeah, just putting yourself out
Mm-hmm.
there too. And you know, we've got all the panelists here that are part of, like, you know, Women BIM initiative, and you know, we've got a global presence as well. So the community is building, and there's just more knowledge to be shared on that front as well.
Definitely. And I think, you know, one of the struggles I had in Australia coming back was, you know, finding that community. You know, there weren't that many of us, you know, back then in this sector. So it's, you know, it's just having, and again, you know, within the website, if you are a member, you can kind of search for women in your region and chat with them or meet with them if you aren't in lockdown. Sorry, Rachel. And you know, you basically, you know, you basically got to utilize our resources effectively to be able to obviously find what you're looking for. So thank you to our
Yeah, and
panelists.
exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Rachel.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's all good. I was just going to continue on, like, you know, I guess, you know, even looking towards, like, even, you know, students and all of that too, like, you know, I mean, although they're not leaders now, they will be future representatives perhaps of, like, you know, the BIM industry too. So yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And Jenny, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to support all of the above mentioned.
All good.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you everyone, and I guess I'll jump to each of you, you know, with the questions who I think would be. I mean, obviously you can all answer them, but I guess I'll start with I don't know, Belinda. Is there the question is there any data on why women are leaving and not returning to the industry effectively?
Look, I'm not sure I've got the answer,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that there is. Like in general, in engineering, I know that people going away or ladies going away having babies is probably one of the main reasons for them leaving the industry. And then I would say it's confidence again. But as far as if there is any hard data on it, I'm sure there's data out there. I just don't have it to hand. I'm pretty sure that GHD's HR team would have a lot of knowledge around that, though.
I don't think there is any data in terms of why women are leaving. I think just by default, obviously, if you either, I don't think it's just about children. I think it's also about the support internally. I know for me anyway, you know, there've been many moments in my career where I just wanted to chuck it all in, right? So based on what was going on internally within my organisations, but. Does anybody else have any comments on why they think women are leaving and not returning to the sector?
I might throw in my 2 cents. This is just an observation, and I think previously, you know, BIM or DE hasn't really been a must-have skill set. It's nice to have, and it's looking predominantly at increasing efficiency of how we do designs and modeling and stuff like that. But now, you know, with also leadership coming from the government side, you know, unfortunately, COVID did actually kind of expedite and became a quick catalyst for digitalizing our economy, and so it becomes an essential skill set. So previously, you may not see, you know, as I previously touched base on, as a prospect, a career path that actually can go a long way. But now, being that it is potentially going to be hopefully mandated in coming years, and also a business function that within each of the engineering firms or the architectural firms, we might actually hope to see more of the females not leaving and increase the retention rates. In terms of the data of living, I don't think there's also enough kind of you know, the mother care kind of program that it has been initiated in the space, in our space certainly, and that's also another opportunity that you know, our organization, if not companies, can actually build into supporting that, because fundamentally, you know, the skill sets, you might lose a bit of, you know, what the most in technologies are, but you shouldn't lose your core skill set for designing and also for being able to coordinate. And, you know, that's why coupled with technical and soft skills are fundamental, and I would say, you know, in the new era that we are going ahead for this industry.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the thing, you know, it's ensuring that we have the mechanisms in place within our organisations to support also flexible working and other conditions, which I think is ultimately been driven by as a response to COVID in some way. Certainly for me, you know, it's helped me to be able to manage my home, well, my home life and my work. But I guess there's just another question here. Maybe Ligia, you can touch on the answer to this one. How might somebody get their foot in the door of a BIM career if they have no or very limited experience in BIM?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's not a single answer. There's not a single answer for that. I'll tell what happened with me. Like I didn't know what BIM was like 10 years ago. Once I understood what BIM is, and I was very excited, and I thought that's the future. I want to work with BIM, and I started studying and trying to use, like, develop my software skills, and then I moved to other skills that are really important as well, such as like coordination skills and how to use that in my daily routine, like how to implement it in my work as an architect, as a whatever, which area are you working. But I started with softwares, and then I moved to other skills that are also important as well. Not sure what was your experience.
Yeah, look, I mean, most of us kind of by default kind of fell into these roles based on, you know, professional qualifications in, you know, other areas, engineering, architecture, etc. But certainly one of the things that I'd recommend is, you know, just you know, stay connected. You know, there are so many groups and initiatives on a global level that have, you know, BIM support, guidance, documentation, and constantly reading up on all of this sort of stuff to allow you to understand the framework for BIM adoption and this kind of strategic side, as well as doing a little bit of the training in the technologies. I think it's constantly a self-motivated thing, right? I think that's something that I would constantly encourage some of the young women that are entering our mentor scheme anyway. You know, to just continually read up on what's going on in your region of the world, and then get some training in the technologies. There's another question here. I'll address this to. I'm just trying to think who would this be relevant for. Probably Jenny. That there's a young person working in quantity surveying in Singapore, and has practiced BIM for about 2 years, but it's quite competitive in Singapore, and therefore she's just wondering if, and I think the question indicates she's wondering if, or he is wondering if BIM has been used, I guess, to prove to the client in terms of benefits, current projects in Australia, you know, if there is a process of measuring benefits for clients in Australia. Maybe with your experience in Transport New South Wales, I'm not sure, but yeah, I'll leave you to that one.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try my best to answer these questions. In short, yes, BIM actually has been used and considered from a client-side perspective. May not necessarily say for claim, but it certainly has been proposed. And with the current environment in Australia, certainly on some of the major infrastructure projects, the thinking is, you know, an enterprise level of the integration of BIM. Now, I wanted to highlight that BIM is not just about software and technology. It's a process. It's about building the information across the cycle of the project, as well as extending throughout the asset that you are creating after construction has been handed over. So I think if you can get that thinking and the principle of what BIM is all about right, then you're able to actually go further in your career, not just focusing on learning all the time new technology and new applications, but thinking about how you can practically practice, if not implement the same process across different projects, if not creating different efficiency or engage at different level, whether it's supply chain, your customers, or consultants and design. There are certainly within the governments of across the state, looking at cross-disciplinary adoption of BIM and utilizing of BIM to realize the benefit. And in doing so, also we would need people within each of the disciplines to also get into the space. So don't be too discouraged. I would say, if anything, get it closer to other people that are also practicing BIM. Highlight and put your hand up to be involved on some of the digital projects, and find out what the process they have adopted and how that can be better improved. Because as much as we are in the space right now, we are still learning on a daily basis, including myself, what innovative way to go forward and how we can better connect with all the different parts of the business function as well. And claim commercial being one, legal is also a difficult one, and procurement as well. So
totally. And I think, if anybody wants to connect with us, you obviously have all our names and details. I mean, we're all working on, different kind of levels of maturity of BIM or digital engineering projects within our respective roles within our businesses. So, we're always here to kind of offer guidance and insight if there's, if there's any kind of support required, specifically, in Australia, but also wider with, our network in the UK and globally, really, with our regional leads. So I guess I'm not sure if we've got any more time. We're just hitting our threshold, I think. So I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank the organisers for the event today, and I'd encourage you to get in touch with Women in BIM, www.womeninbim.org, or touch base with Nicole, our administrator, at info@womeninbim.org for any questions. Otherwise, connect with all of us on LinkedIn or wherever you choose to use social media. So thanks, everyone.
thanks, Rebecca. Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.